Hello, this is Sue Leone, and this is a brief tutorial about AutoCAD Basics. This uses AutoCAD 2018, which is the version that we are now teaching in the CEG department program. So this is what it looks like when you first open it. At the top, you can see there's a bunch of tabs, and then there's panels on each tab in the ribbon. This is just like Microsoft Office Suite products. Then you have this Start tab inside what would be the drawing area. And you can see there's Getting Started. And if you click this drop-down box for templates, a CAD just stands for AutoCAD. DWT is template. And that is in customary units. And then the other one that we're going to use pretty much, not so much, but a little bit, is a CAD ISO, which stands for, the IS is the International System or Metric System. So when you start your drawing, it's usually going to turn out with this first one here. Click Start Drawing. And you can see that Start tab is still there, which is nice because down at the bottom, you can watch some videos if you would like. So here's our drawing space. You can see there is a grid down here. You can turn that off. This is the regular drawing space called Model Space. And you can see there's a tab down in the bottom left-hand corner called Model. There are also two tabs called Layout 1 and Layout 2, and we'll get to those in a little bit. So the first thing you want to do is save your drawing. I prefer to use the quick icons up here in the quick access toolbar, Save As and Save. You can also use what I call the big A, which is the application menu. It has the same things. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I am just going to save it to my desktop. And I'm going to call it my name just because it's a test. And you can see the name shows up in the tab as the name of your file. Another important thing for you to know about is this window right here, the command line, and you can see these two dotted lines. That means that is the grip, and you would click and hold that, and it allows you to move it around. I prefer to dock it, which is when you bring it down close to the bottom, and it turns into that larger bar. It does show you what your previous command was, and then if you go to here and go to Options, you can actually change the color and things like that. That is pretty much what we're going to look at. As far as the interface, the top left panel are your basic draw commands. And then go over to the fourth panel, the layers command, you'll need that. Layer properties. I prefer to also dock that and then minimize. And what that does is that can see it says Layer Properties Manager. If you put your cursor over it, it pops back up. So I like doing that. Another one is Properties. So I will show you how to, one way to get to properties. There's actually a bunch of ways to get to see the properties of the object. And I will show you one after we have drawn something. Now you do have an assignment, which is to draw about an acre or 3/4 of an acre of land from the air. So this is a plan view of this parcel. And why we want you to do that is because we want you to use those properties menus. Now, you've got to draw something first. So there's a couple different ways to draw. You can come down here to the command line and just start typing your command. If I want to draw a line, I type an L, and a bunch of possibilities will come up. Or if you know that line is just L, so then you hit line and it says specify the first point. You can specify that with coordinates, but we're just going to start drawing. So Here's an example of a line, and I'm going to hit Enter or Spacebar to end my line. Now, the cool thing about the spacebar is that if you hit spacebar, it reactivates the command that you were just in. Now, if you were just saving in between drawing lines, it would only remember literally the last command, which in this case would be save. So I'm going to go ahead and I want you to see what happens when you select. It turns blue and grips appear, and you can click and drag those grips and move them. Control Z is undo, just like normal. You can also, when it is selected, Control C to copy and Control V to paste in various spots. Now, one cool thing is that this program is called Object Snap. And if you look down here, this little O snap, it's a little square with a green dot, that is on. And you can see with my tooltip that's coming up when I hover that is F3. If you are on a laptop, you may have to do function F3 in order to get the F3 key. But let me show you what Snap does. So you click and hold, and you can actually see it's showing where it's straight, up and down, or horizontally. That's called a polar snap. It's actually a different button. But here's the object snap. See that end point right there? And there are a bunch of different object snaps, and they can be really handy if you want to go towards the end of something. Well, what if you didn't? See how it's fighting me. It wants to go there. So I'm going to turn object snap off. You can see in the command line that it now says O snap off, and now it doesn't do that. So I am free to draw my line wherever I want. So get used to F3 because it just comes in handy. If you do Control A, that will select everything. And Notice and Escape will deselect everything. If you select everything and you want to deselect one item, hold the Shift key and click. Notice by my cursor is a little negative sign, a little minus sign. That means that I'm going to be removing it from the selection. If I hover over that line, you can see that it now is a plus. If I click it, it will add to the selection. Notice that a line, which is what we just drew a whole bunch of, these are actually line segments. They are individual line segments. And so I'm actually going to get rid of this. I'm going to Control A to get rid of everything. And you can either type erase as a command, or you can just hit the delete key on your keyboard. Gone. Now let me show you polyline. And I used the ribbon, but you can also just type P-line or PL in the command line window at the bottom. And so let me draw that shape again, and looks the same, right? Hit spacebar or enter to end that command. But now when I select it, the whole thing lights up. And these middle things here, if you hover, there's a different menu that says add vertex. So I can actually add a corner, or I can convert it to an arc of my choosing. Yeah, pretty cool, pretty cool. All right, so we've explored line and polyline. That's needed for your homework. What I'd like to do is use the rectangle tool now to try and make a parcel that is about an acre, maybe 3/4 of an acre large. Because remember, I'm going to be drawing a plan view of this parcel. It could be a strip mall, it could be a bunch of houses. It could be a big mansion on its own big property. Whatever you want to draw is up to you. I'm not judging your drawing. We're not going to grade you on your drawing. We just want you to try to play around with this. Okay, so how do I know if this is an acre? Well, very simply, you select your item, right-click, and go down to Properties. Now, as I said, that is just one way to do this. Again, I'm going to dock it. And you can see under geometry is area. Now it says 506.5308, but it doesn't indicate a unit. So, minimize that. We're going to go to the command line, type units, and that brings up our drawing units. And look at the units to scale inserted content is inches. I'm going to change that to feet and click OK. So now when I look at the properties, oh, I don't have anything selected. Click that and then look at properties. It still has the same number, but now that's feet, not inches. All right, so I need to zoom out. I'm going to do that with my scroll wheel. If you scroll in away from you, that's scrolling in closer. And if you scroll out, if you scroll towards you, that's making what you see smaller. It's a smaller scale. Actually, it's a larger scale. I'm sorry, it shows more. Model space is always in full scale. So if we printed this full size, it would be 500, it would take up 500 sheets of paper because it's 506 square feet. So that's something important for you to realize. All right, I'm going to pin this properties open because I'm going to keep using it. And I'm just going to change the size and keep looking at my area. Now, if you remember, 1 acre is 43,560 square feet. So I'm at about 3,100. That is still way too small. So I'm going to scroll out. Now to pan, you press the scroll wheel in and you press and hold and you can move. And so now I'm just going to make this bigger again. All right, now I'm at 28. That's not quite 75% of an acre. What would be 75% of an acre? 43560 times 0.75, 32,000, 33,000. So it's got to at least be 33,000. So I'm going to scroll out again. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Oh, now I'm at 74,000, way too big. I'm going to make this smaller, 61. See what I'm doing? All right, 39, we're fine, that's good. All right, now how do I deselect this? Remember, you can hit Shift and select, or you can just, or you can just escape. I had Control Z there to try to undo my deselection. Apparently that doesn't work. All right, so now I'm going to scroll in so that it fills up my space, so I'm not straining my eyes. And I'm just going to use a combination of lines and polylines to place some houses. It's trying to do the object snap, so I'm going to turn that off. All right, I'm going to check to see, that's 1,100 square feet. It's a small house. I'm going to just use Control C, Control V, and just place a bunch of them. And I'm just going to play around. This says arc. All right, let's try that. Make a nice curved road. Let me do another one. Remember, roads are smaller than houses. There, that looks pretty good. All right, and I'm gonna make some driveways. Now remember, I'm gonna use the spacebar to restart the line command. So I end it with the spacebar, restart it with the spacebar. Using a combination of keyboard and buttons and mouse really makes your work go faster. In MicroStation and in AutoCAD Civil 3D, which you learn about in Civ 125 course, it is much more right-click oriented, but AutoCAD itself is very, we call it DOSy, meaning it's very similar to the old style Windows DOS operating system. It is based very much off of F function keys and also commands in the command line. All right, so that is a real quick drawing. Now we've got to make a layout. So we go to the layout tab and voila, here is a window, or actually a viewport, into my model space. We're on paper space. This is the orientation of the paper. We can change that. You'll learn how to do that in CEG 151. But right now we're in model space, or sorry, paper space, looking into model space through this window. If I select that viewport, I can actually change the size of it. If I double click in the viewport, I am actually operating in model space. Now, I don't want to see this graph, so I'm going to turn my graph off, my grid. I could have just hit the F7 function key, and I can actually pan, and I can zoom. I'm going to try and get this to be as centered as I can. That actually looks pretty good. And I'm going to come down here to this little padlock, and I'm going to lock that. And then I'm going to double click outside the viewport, just off the paper somewhere, so that I can deactivate that viewport. Now here's the thing. I've got this line, this border. The viewport is actually showing up. I don't want to see the viewport. So I'm going to go back to my Layer Properties Manager and click New. That's the one that is stack of papers with an orange starburst. Or I can hit Alt-N, creates a new layer, and I want you to call that Viewport. And you can just leave everything as it is. But I do want you to take a look at this. It says on. That's a little light bulb. That means that it's visible. Well, I want to turn that off. But before I do that, let's head over here and actually move it. So I'm going to select my viewport. Now I'm going to come up to this layers panel. You can see this drop down. It has the name of the layer. Right now everything is drawn on layer 0. And you can see that it is on. If I click there, I don't turn it off. It just brings up the drop down box. So I'm going to put it on the viewport layer. And then when I click out and hit escape, it goes back to 0 again. And that means that whatever I draw will go on the 0 layer. But if I hover over this viewport, it says layer viewport in the middle of that text. All right, so I want to turn that off. So I'm going to go back to this drop-down box, and I'm going to come on over here, and I'm going to click that little light bulb and turn it off, and that border disappears. Now the dotted line, that's actually just the area that will be printed. So that won't actually show up. in your PDF. What will show up, however, is that it is an educational version. Now look over at the tab where I had named my file. It now has an asterisk. That means that it is not saved. So you want to do that, just Control S, and it quick saves, just overwrites the old file. All right, so we've done that. You're also going to need to add some text to your layout. And the easiest way to do that is with what is called M text. You can either come up here to this big A text in the annotation panel, or you can type M text or MT and hit enter. And you can see next to your cursor now is an ABC that shows you the size that the words will be when you are done editing them. So specify the first corner. The command line does communicate with you, so it tells you what to do. Specify the first corner. Now the opposite corner. And now you can start typing. I need to know what your property is called. And I need to know your name. All right, now I just pressed enter to get from line to line because MText does stand for multi-line text, which means our old standby of enter will not get us out of this command, and neither will the space bar because it just gives us a space. What you have to do is either hit escape or just click out. If you hit escape, you'll get a question. Do you want to save your text changes? Obviously, yes, you do. But in this case, I'm just going to click somewhere off the screen, and it gets me out of the mtext command. All right, now we've got to print this to a PDF. There are a bunch of different ways to do this. You can go to the big application menu and export as a PDF or a bunch of other things. I also like the output tab because you can export the current layout or all layouts. That's the nice part. If you have more than one page, it'll make one single PDF. We're going to use the current page setup because I haven't taught you how to do page setup. Going to click the export drop down to PDF, and we're going to give it the name. I'm going to call it the same name. Obviously, you would call it whatever your instructor has requested that you call your assignment. If you want to open it in Viewer when you are done, go ahead and click that. This again gives you a chance to change what you're exporting. Here are some options. If you want to make it really low quality or something, you can do that. I'm going to cancel out of that. I'm going to open in the viewer when done so you can see it. I'm going to save. And here's my PDF. And you can see it is actually has layers. So here it is. That's the basics of what you need to know in AutoCAD to do this project. Please be creative. You do not have to draw 6 houses on a curved street. You're welcome to do whatever you want to draw. Make your boundary of your parcel whatever shape you would like. Please be creative, have fun. Draw an airport or draw a strip mall or whatever you'd like to do. Just have fun with it. Explore the ways to draw things. Press buttons. The worst you can do is have to reinstall it. So anyway, have fun.